Picture this, it's a warm summer morning in 1518. The quiet streets of Strasbourg, a city nestled within the Holy Roman Empire, are just beginning to stir. Bakers knead their dough, merchants set up their stalls, and the hum of daily life fills the air. But suddenly, something strange breaks the routine. A lone woman steps into the street and begins to dance. At first, people watch in confusion, thinking it's some odd performance. But the hours pass, and she doesn't stop. Her movements grow frantic, her face etched with pain rather than joy. By the next day, others have joined her. Dozens. Men, women, even children, dancing uncontrollably as if possessed by an unseen force. This strange spectacle continues for days, then weeks, spiraling into chaos. People collapse from exhaustion, some never to rise again. What could cause such a bizarre and deadly phenomenon? A curse? A disease? Or something deeper within the human psyche? Join us as we uncover the chilling mystery of the dancing plague of 1518. The year was 1518, and Strasbourg was a bustling city within the sprawling Holy Roman Empire. Its cobblestone streets were alive with merchants, blacksmiths, and townsfolk going about their day. But beneath this lively facade lay a world of hardship. The region had been battered by famine, with failed harvests leaving many hungry. Diseases swept through the population like unseen storms, and the looming threat of political instability added to the tension. In these times, life was harsh and uncertain. People turned to religion for answers, their beliefs often tinged with fear of divine punishment for sins, fear of curses, and fear of the unknown. This was a world where the line between the spiritual and the physical blurred, and superstition ruled the collective imagination. It was in this fragile, volatile environment that the dancing plague began. It all started with one woman, Frau Trophia. On a seemingly ordinary July morning, she stepped into the street and began to dance. Not a joyful dance, but an eerie, uncontrollable movement that defied explanation. At first, the townsfolk were baffled. Was she cursed? Possessed? Soon her strange affliction spread to others, and panic set in. Local authorities were called upon to intervene, while physicians scrambled to understand what they believed was an ailment of the blood. This mysterious outbreak would push the limits of their medieval understanding of medicine, faith, and human behavior. And it was only the beginning of what would become one of the strangest epidemics in recorded history. It all began on a quiet July morning in 1518. Frau Trophia, a local resident of Strasbourg, stepped out into the street and began to dance. There was no music, no celebration, and no apparent reason, yet her feet moved relentlessly. Her arms flailed, her body twisted and turned, as if controlled by some invisible force. Hours passed, but she didn't stop. By the next day, her solitary dance had attracted onlookers, some amused, others bewildered. But the amusement quickly turned to concern as her movements grew more frantic. Then, the unthinkable happened, others began to join her. Within days, the streets were filled with dancers. Men, women, and even children, all moving uncontrollably, as if possessed by the same mysterious force. The numbers swelled to dozens, then hundreds. By some accounts, nearly 400 people were gripped by this strange and relentless compulsion to dance. This was no joyous spectacle. These weren't revelers celebrating life. Their faces bore grimaces of pain and exhaustion. Many collapsed in the streets, their bodies unable to endure the relentless movement. Some even danced themselves to death, succumbing to heart attacks, strokes, or sheer exhaustion. What began with one woman had now spiraled into chaos, a deadly dance that gripped the entire city. And as the bodies piled up, the people of Strasbourg were left with one pressing question: what was causing this nightmare? In the 16th century, understanding of illness was steeped in superstition and limited medical knowledge. To the people of Strasbourg, the dancing plague was no ordinary event, it was a sign of divine wrath. Many believed it was a curse inflicted by Saint Vitus, the patron saint of dancing and epilepsy, sent to punish them for their sins. This belief led the afflicted to be treated not with medicine, but with spiritual rituals and prayers to appease the saint. Meanwhile, physicians of the time had their own explanation. They believed the dancers were suffering from a condition called hot blood, a fever-like ailment caused by an imbalance of bodily humors. Their solution? Let the afflicted dance it out. Authorities, desperate for a remedy, leaned into this bizarre prescription. They cleared public spaces and even hired musicians to encourage more dancing. They believed that by exhausting themselves, the dancers would expel the illness from their bodies. But instead of curing the afflicted, the dancing intensified. The music and crowds only seemed to spread the hysteria, as more people joined in, driven by fear, faith, or some unknown compulsion. These desperate attempts to treat the outbreak may have only fueled the chaos, leaving the city to grapple with a mystery far beyond their understanding. In their desperation, the authorities even went so far as to establish public dancing halls, hoping that the structured environment would help the dancers exhaust themselves more safely. Musicians were hired to play continuous, rhythmic tunes, encouraging the dancers to move without stopping. The idea was to let the afflicted sweat out their fever and regain control over their bodies. Yet, these measures only seemed to exacerbate the situation, as the dance became an unstoppable frenzy. As the days passed, more and more townspeople joined the madness, some willingly, others perhaps drawn in by the infectious hysteria. What had begun as a few individuals was now a growing epidemic of movement and madness, spreading through the streets like wildfire. The dancers were unable to stop, their bodies governed by an unseen force. Doctors, priests, and city officials watched helplessly as the city was consumed by this strange and relentless force. Bodies were carried away, exhausted or dead from the toll of the constant motion. Some were said to have danced until they collapsed, only to die from heart attacks, strokes, or sheer exhaustion. It was a chaotic scene, one that seemed to blur the lines between the physical and the supernatural, between medicine and faith. What started as an inexplicable outbreak of dancing became a nightmare, a collective trauma that would haunt Strasbourg for years to come. The people of this city had no answers, and with every passing day, the mystery deepened. How could something so bizarre and terrifying have taken hold of an entire community? And why was it happening in the first place? Centuries later, historians and scientists have tried to unravel the mystery of the dancing plague of 1518. Unlike the supernatural and humoral theories of the past, modern explanations look at psychological and biological factors that might have triggered this bizarre outbreak. One compelling theory points to mass psychogenic illness, what we might call mass hysteria. In a society battered by famine, disease, and relentless hardship, the collective trauma may have pushed people to their psychological limits. Stress, fear, and desperation can manifest in strange and uncontrollable ways, leading entire groups to experience shared symptoms. In this case, dancing became a physical outlet for overwhelming anxiety and emotional strain. Another theory shifts the focus to biology. Some researchers suggest the culprit could have been ergot poisoning, a condition caused by consuming grain contaminated with ergot fungus. This fungus produces chemicals similar to LSD, which can cause hallucinations, muscle spasms, and strange behaviors. It's a tantalizing idea, given that bread made from tainted grain was a staple in medieval diets. But there are problems with the ergot theory. Ergotism often causes severe pain and convulsions, symptoms that don't match the prolonged, organized dancing scene during the outbreak. Furthermore, ergot poisoning is typically localized, yet the dancing plague appeared to spread like an epidemic. So, was this a psychological phenomenon? A biological anomaly? Or perhaps a combination of factors? The truth remains elusive, but the dancing plague offers a fascinating glimpse into how the human mind and body respond to extraordinary stress and uncertainty. After weeks of chaos, the dancing plague of 1518 finally began to subside. The turning point, according to historical accounts, came when the afflicted were sent on a pilgrimage to a shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus. There, they performed rituals and offered prayers, seeking the saint's forgiveness and divine intervention. Miraculously, or perhaps coincidentally, the dancers gradually stopped, their bodies too exhausted to continue. But the damage had already been done. The streets of Strasbourg were left scarred, not just physically, but emotionally. Lives were lost to exhaustion, families were shattered, and the city was left grappling with an event that defied explanation. The dancing plague of 1518 remains one of history's most bizarre and unsettling mysteries. It challenges us to consider how deeply the human body and mind are intertwined with the world around us, how stress, belief, and environment can collide in extraordinary ways. Today, Strasbourg stands as a thriving modern city, far removed from the fears and hardships of the 16th century. Yet the memory of the dancing plague lingers, a strange reminder of how fragile and mysterious the human condition can be. The dancing plague of 1518 has fascinated historians, scientists, and storytellers for centuries. It's an event so strange, so unexplainable, that it continues to capture the imagination. Was it the result of immense psychological stress? A physical reaction to tainted food? Or perhaps a complex mix of both? Beyond its mystery, the dancing plague offers a glimpse into the human condition, a reminder of how deeply our minds and bodies are connected to the world around us. In times of great stress, fear, or uncertainty, people can respond in ways that defy logic, shaping collective behaviors that ripple through entire communities. Even today, we see echoes of this phenomenon. From outbreaks of mass hysteria to the ways societal pressures influence mental and physical health, the story of the dancing plague feels strangely relevant. It invites us to reflect on how we cope with stress, how we interpret the unknown, and how our environment shapes who we are. So, what do you think caused the dancing plague of 1518? Was it a psychological epidemic, a biological anomaly, or something we've yet to understand? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and join the conversation. Because, even after 500 years, the mystery of the dancing plague is still very much alive. If you are interested in such interesting and strange tales from the past, leave us thumb up and hit the subscribe button. We'll see you on our next journey.